everybody, this is Hammer Striker here, and today I've got a PPQ, but there's something a little different about this one. This one is chambered in 22 LR. So let me show you a few things about this. First we'll start off showing you that it is empty. This is probably the most faithful as far as replicas of the 22 versions of various popular handguns, and it's as close as you're going to get to a real PPQ. And there's a lot of design features about this that make it nicer than some of the others. From a dimensional perspective, it's almost identical in size to the 9mm PPQ. The ergonomics are the same, and the trigger, though not identical, is very, very close. The gun behaves like a striker-fired gun, though you'll see when I take it apart, it does actually have an internal hammer. But it has that same very light, nice, crisp trigger that the Striker PPQ has. From a functional perspective, it's got pretty much all of the same features, even though this does not have the replaceable back straps that the normal PPQs do. And it does come with these black rear and white dot front sights. And at times these were a little difficult to see the blackout sight. And I know some people really do like the blackout sights. I'll probably end up either painting a little U on this or replacing the sights or putting white dots on it, something to make that rear sight a little more visible. It is a very nice adjustable. It's height adjustable. As you see, there's a screw right there, and it can be drifted for windage. The front sight is pinned, but is replaceable. There's a screw underneath it. You'll see when I get it apart. You can unscrew it and remove the sight. So, for example, you wanted to put, fiber optic or something like that on it. And the top of it is serrated to cut down on glare. Just looking at it, unless of course you looked at the muzzle, it'd be very difficult to tell that this is a 22. All of the external features and everything else are pretty much the same. It comes with these very well constructed steel magazines. They hold 12 rounds, but what we found is you're going to tend to load them with 10. It works better with 10, and if you're using something like these CCI cases to hold your ammo, you just slide it back until you have row 2 and then dump it, and there's your 10 rounds. And these, by the way, are dummy round snap caps. So we found that it runs a lot more reliably, and it's actually more convenient to just load it to 10. The magazines did come with a bunch of grease in them, Cosmoline type stuff in them, and that did interfere with them initially, so I had to disassemble the magazines and clean them out. It does only come with one magazine, but additional magazines are readily available. The gun did exhibit a little bit of a break-in period early on in its life. Partially, I think it was the mess in the magazines and the need to just kind of run a little bit. Let me go ahead and take it apart and show you some of the features in it. Disassembly is fairly easy. You pull down on these levers just like you would on a regular PPQ, but they're a little bit stiffer. They don't just pull down for a second so you can pop the slide off. You actually have to push them down, and I find it's easier to do it from the top. It slides down and locks in. Now, unlike a normal PPQ, this is a blowback gun. So the slide doesn't go off to the front, the slide actually comes off to the rear. So you slide the slide back, lift it up, and then forward and off. And you'll see there's the recoil spring assembly and the recoil guide. Pull that off. And there's a little buffer here, and you need to make sure that this stays either on there, or when you clean it, make sure you put it back on. And you'll see that one side is recessed. That's the spring's actually going to slide into that recess. So when you put it back together, you have to put it back together the right way. If you have it upside down, the spring will just slide around on there. And I'll show you more of this when I put it actually back together. Now, because it's blowback, you'll see that it is a fixed barrel, and there's the hammer at the back. So it is, it is a hammer gun, but the trigger pull, you'll see when I demonstrate the trigger, is about 4 pounds. So it's a very nice trigger, like the Striker PPQs. It does have a Picatinny rail. You can put a lighter laser on it. And one of the features that you'll like about it is this barrel end nut is removable. And they do sell a version that they call the Tactical that comes with this little adapter. And this adapter threads on in place of that nut and converts it to a 1/2x28 thread, so you can put a suppressor on it. So there's a couple ways to get that feature. You can buy the standard gun, which this one is, and buy the barrel adapter separately, either from Walther, or you can buy it from one of the manufacturers of silencers. This actually happens to be a Sparrow, Silencer Co. Sparrow adapter. but it's standardized. It'll fit any 1/2 by 28 thread, or you can buy it from Walther. One of the things I would be cautious of, there's a whole lot of these on Amazon for $8, $9 made by machine shop someplace. It's very important that these be accurate, especially if you're going to put a suppressor on it, because you don't want to have a baffle strike. So here's one area I wouldn't save money by buying the $10 one on Amazon. Either buy Walther's piece or buy one from one of the regular silencer manufacturers or suppressor manufacturers to make sure that you got somebody that spent the time to get it right. If you do use that, you do have to remove it to disassemble the gun because it sticks out through the through the end of the slide. If you have this nut on, you can leave the nut on, and not have to do anything with it. And I'll show you a few of the other features in here before I put it back together. One, you're going to notice that there are not front rails, and that's part of the whole way the guide assembly and the way that it's designed as a blowback gun. But it does have some nice robust rails at the back. It is a drop safe weapon, and I'll show you that when I show you the slide. There is a drop safety in it. And the hammer is well constructed and smooth. It's a nice solid hammer. And one of the things in this gun, the components are steel and aluminum. There's no zinc in here. Everything is made with high quality materials, even down to the very finely polished feed ramp. On the slide, you'll see there's a steel insert here that resets the hammer as well as guiding the next round in. And this area here that looks like it's damaged actually isn't damaged. What they've done is they've drilled through it and put a steel rod in there. And that steel rod is right at the point where the slide catch catches. So instead of chewing up the aluminum, the slide catch hits that steel. So the areas that are going to be high wear points, they've thought about that. They've gone through this and then made sure that you're going to have a high longevity, very durable gun. And there's the drop safety that blocks the firing pin, which is of course disengaged by pulling the trigger. Internally it's very well machined, very smooth. It's Cerakoted aluminum, and of course it's exceptionally light. And up front here there's the screw right up there that you can remove if you want to replace the front sight. You just run that screw out, pop the sight out, and replace it with whatever you're going to replace it with. So overall, as I've gone through this thing, I've seen other 22 similar, guns that are 22s that are similar to another regular caliber gun, and this one seems to be the one that they focus the most on the quality and the longevity of it. I see this thing lasting as long as any of the other PPQs, and once you get through that initial break-in period, running is good. So let's go ahead and put it back together, and there you see the nice Picatinny rail if you wanted to hang an Opticus or a light or a laser or something on it. Reassembly is fairly straightforward. One of the things you do have to be aware of is there's a little notch on the front of this. That notch has to face down. That sits onto a ramp that's part of the disassembly slide. And you also need to make sure that as you're putting it back together that the takedown lever is down. Otherwise it won't sit in there correctly. Make sure that the little cup is on there with the right side out and drop the spring into it. It does just slide in and just sits there. So you just put it in, it'll drop down into a little hole and it'll just sit there. So it's fairly easy to drop it in. Now, there is a tool. Because the spring just sticks up, it would be rather difficult to try to put the slide over it because you're pulling the slide from the front. So they do provide this little plastic pin, and it's got a little point on the end of it, but it's not sharp. And you just drop this in with the point up. Now if you were to lose that, pretty much any kind of a dowel, plastic pin, anything would work. You could actually put it together without it, but it'd be a lot more difficult. And then all you do is you take the slide and run that little pin through the guide rod hole. Just pull the slide back, let the thing fall out, pull the slide back, drop it onto the guides, and it's in. Slide this up and you're ready to go. So of all the disassembly, reassembly tools that I've seen used on various different guns, this one is the least intrusive, and it doesn't involve you holding anything in any particular special direction. You just drop it on the spring, it keeps it from wiggling around, slide the slide back on, and then this thing will just fall out onto the table. Now I'm going to go ahead and load it up with some snap caps so I can show you the trigger. And these are just regular inert dummy rounds. It is a 22 LR, so you don't want to dry fire it. Now the trigger, as I mentioned, was 4 pounds. There's a minimal amount of take-up. and then a clean light brake, and then the reset is a little bit longer than a standard PPQ. It's right about there. It's slightly tactile. There's a little bit of a click and a little bit of a feel. And then that crisp brake again. So overall, you've got a trigger that's very close to the other PPQs, and from a training perspective, that would make this good as a trigger training for the other guns at a much lower cost. I'll let it all the way out, take it up, and brake. So it's well thought out, it's well done. And once you got through that initial period, cleaned up the mags, got it running, it's a pleasure to shoot at the range, and it doesn't seem to have any ammo sensitivity. We put various different kinds of ammo through it, and it just runs. So overall, if you're looking for just a fun gun, or you want a 22 that's actually full size and nice, this would be a perfect gun for that purpose. Let me show you the other, compare it to the regular PPQ 9, which is of course unloaded. Put them side by side. You'll see they're almost identical. There's a few minor differences in the way the frame's shaped, but overall all the dimensions that are significant are pretty much identical. And you'll see that even the grip heights are the same. So, if you like our videos, give us a thumbs up, share, subscribe, hang on for some more range footage, and have a great day. Thank you.